Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to demystify what is, without a doubt, one of the most high-stakes, highly complex roles within the entire United Nations system. We're talking about the Director of Mission Support at the UN Support Office in Haiti. To do this, we're diving into a fascinating 50-point strategic guide prepared for candidate Bazel El-Habel. It's a real behind-the-scenes look at how large-scale international mandates actually function in some of the most difficult, unpredictable environments on the planet. So let's start with a big question. What happens when a UN mandate actually meets reality? How does a highly abstract Security Council resolution translate into actual boots on the ground in a super volatile environment? It's one thing to have a high-level directive agreed upon in a comfortable boardroom in New York, right? But it is an entirely different beast to make sure that funds are tracked, supplies are moving safely, and staff are protected right in the middle of Port-au-Prince. And that brings us to a massive distinction we have to make right up front. There's conventional administration, which is your standard, predictable, day-to-day processing of paperwork, and then there is mandate-enabling support. Listen, this D2 role we're talking about, it is absolutely not about pushing paper. Not at all. It's the life-saving translation of policy into continuous, relentless operational action. The Director of Mission Support is basically the central engine, sitting right there between the head of mission, the operational partners, and the very real, very raw situations happening on the ground. Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to quickly cover 1. The ultimate management challenge. 2. Translating mandates to action. 3. The 7 pillars of support. 4. Resilience in volatile settings. And finally, 5. The first 100 days. Let's jump right in.
Part 1. The ultimate management challenge. We need to talk about what operating in Port-au-Prince actually means. The UN designates Haiti as a non-family duty station. That right there tells you everything you need to know about the severe security risks and infrastructure realities on the ground. This kind of environment demands extreme operational realism, but combined with intense institutional discipline.
Just look at this balancing act. The director has to manage this incredibly complex web of stakeholders. You've got the gang suppression force, who need highly predictable logistics. You've got the UN's Integrated Political Office, BIUNA, demanding transparent and equitable support. Then there's the Haitian National Police, needing respectful operational interfaces, and the Organization of American States relying on technical assistance. It is like a giant puzzle. And the ultimate challenge? Providing all of this support without overstepping. Because at the end of the day, you are there to empower national institutions, not substitute for them. Moving on to part 2, translating mandates to action. This is where the rubber really meets the road. It's all about converting those abstract high-level directives into tracked funds, moving supplies, and safeguarded assets. There is a maxim in this strategic guide that I absolutely love. It says, speed is not used as an excuse for weak compliance, and compliance is not used as an excuse for passive service delivery. Think about that for a second. In crisis environments, the temptation to just bypass the rules to get things done quickly is huge. Or, on the flip side, the temptation to just hide behind the rulebook and do nothing. But actually, emergencies require better preparation and faster escalation, never shortcuts. Because compliance is exactly what protects the mission, the staff, and the people you're trying to help. So how do you keep field teams from completely drowning in uncertainty when they are under immense time pressure? Well, the guide proposes 4 strict governance steps. First, establish crystal clear objectives. Second, agree on the absolute minimum service standards. Third, explicitly document who has the right to make decisions. And fourth, create a fast, transparent escalation channel for when things inevitably go wrong. That governance approach, that is exactly how you turn high-stress chaos into a reliable, everyday operating routine. Okay, part 3. The 7 pillars of support. Let's break down the actual anatomy of an effective crisis leader. These 7 pillars form a vital survival framework for managing an entire support division. It all kicks off with mandate literacy, actually understanding who you serve, and delegated authority and compliance, so the rules don't just become bottlenecks. Then we get into the practical stuff. Resource stewardship to align budgets directly with mandate outputs, and service optimization to make sure things are always improving. But crucially, it doesn't forget the human element. You have field resilience and people leadership to protect staff welfare in a super stressful non-family duty station. And tying the whole shebang together, digital modernization. And notice how technology is treated here. Digital modernization, dashboards, analytics, these aren't just fancy IT tools sitting in a back office somewhere. They are vital early warning systems for the mission's leadership. Drawing on candidate Basel El-Habil's deep background in ICT and crisis adaptation, aligning data-led decisions with UN 2.0 allows the director to spot risks, like a supply chain bottleneck or a sudden budget shortfall, long before they turn into total operational failures. It's a real game changer. Let's shift gears to part 4, resilience in volatile settings. We really need to zero in on the physical realities on the ground, because in a volatile environment like Haiti, administrative delays aren't just annoying, they are a direct risk to the mandate, and more importantly, to human life.
Think of this as a high-stakes domino effect. Time-sensitive logistics means you absolutely cannot rely on last-minute reactions. It requires incredibly disciplined coordination of resources that are already super scarce, things like aviation capacity and transport. And it has to be centered entirely around risk and security priorities. Poor asset management or weak cargo control, that directly leads to operational failure, especially when you're trying to support really complex joint operations on the ground. Now, arguably the most critical, literal life or death function here is medical evacuation readiness. Guys, this is not your standard HR administration. Providing exceptional support to entities like the Haitian Armed Forces requires extreme clarity on procedures, absolute confidentiality, and immediate vendor readiness. A delay or even a moment of confusion over who has authority here literally costs lives, and it instantly destroys institutional trust. Which brings us to procurement integrity under urgent pressure. Even when operating literally under fire, the director has to find a way to accelerate acquisition. But here's the catch. They have to do it while preserving fair competition, managing market constraints, and upholding very strict conflict of interest safeguards. This is where that maxim we talked about earlier, balancing speed and compliance, is truly put to the ultimate test. Finally, part 5, the first 100 days. Look, strategy is great on paper, right? But how does all of this become ground reality when a leader actually steps off the plane and into the mission? The first 100 days are highly structured. Days 1 to 30 are all about confirming the current state, basically separating fact from assumption. Days 30 to 60, that's for meeting key counterparts and building those absolutely crucial relationships. Then, days 60 to 90 are focused on executing quick improvements to build early credibility. And finally, leading up to day 100, the focus shifts to reviewing deep compliance vulnerabilities. It's a very deliberate plan designed to prove to everyone that the new leadership is actively listening, measuring, and taking decisive action. Now, to actually pull this off requires a massive baseline of experience, specifically 15 years. That's right. This D2 posting demands a decade and a half of relevant experience in administration, logistics, and highly complex conflict or post-conflict field operations. It requires a leader who has successfully sustained services despite severe resource scarcity, which is exactly what this candidate brings to the table from prior documented crisis conditions. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? The lesson from this strategic guide, which honestly applies to any massive organization, is that mission support is entirely inseparable from political credibility. When administration functions with true discipline and responsiveness, it acts as the very shield of the mission. It protects its operational tempo, its transparency, and the trust placed in it by both the international community and the host nation. I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought on the evolution of high-stakes mission support. If compliance is the shield, how can future leaders innovate to deliver critical support even faster when the next crisis inevitably hits? I really invite you to consider how we can continue to balance extreme speed and unwavering discipline in the world's most difficult environments. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning how big ideas become reality on the ground.